Good morning, Cheryl.
Good morning.
You got Scott up there with you this morning, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So at this time, it's 10 o'clock. I'd like to start this meeting to order, Tuesday, July 28th, 2020. What we'll do is we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Homero, you can lead us in the pledge, and then Mr. Minlove, you'll say the invocation. Thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we bow our heads before Thee this morning with gratitude in our hearts for the blessings that have been bestowed upon us. We are grateful for the beauties and the things that are around us. We're grateful for the citizens of Gila County and for the good people that there are, those that care and bless other people in their lives, that bring comfort and joy to those that are lacking. Heavenly Father, we're grateful that this morning we can meet as a board of supervisors. Pray that Thy Spirit will attend us, that we may be able to do all that we do in accordance with Thy will and what would be for the best good of all who are here in Gila County. Heavenly Father, we also have many things that are challenging in Gila County at this time. We pray on behalf of those that are ill with COVID, with the coronavirus, and pray in their behalf that each may be blessed. Those that are sick, that may recover, receive a full recovery, and return to full activity. And Father, we had a very severe fire in western Gila County, and there are devastating effects of flooding and things, and pray that those that may be in harm's way may be protected, that we may do those things that will keep people safe and out of harm's way for the dangers of the rains and the elements that come our way. We're grateful for blessings for this free country in which we live, the blessings that we have of being able to vote and pray that all those that are voting in this primary election this coming week, that they will do so with an eye towards what will improve, what will bring the best good to Gila County, and that all those who are eligible to vote, all those who are registered, will do so. Take advantage of that freedom we have been given by the Constitution to vote. And Heavenly Father, again, we ask Thy blessings upon us here, and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, James. Okay, we're going to go on to number 2, public hearings. 2A, information, discussion, action to approve, deny, or modify a conditional use permit application number CUP-20-01 submitted by Michael Luster to allow a 3-story, 34-foot tall building height for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single-family residence with a garage in a residential 1L use district of the Whispering Pines subdivision. Scott? Good morning, Scott.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Martin, Supervisor Humphrey. My apologies, I had planned to be down in Globe this morning to present to you, but Mother Nature had other things on her mind last night, I guess, so I will present from Payson. I thank you for this opportunity to present for your consideration an application for a conditional use permit, or a CUP, to allow a 3rd story and 34-foot in height single-family residence, which is currently under construction. The Gila County zoning ordinance states in R1L use district, a CUP shall be required for any building exceeding 2 stories or 30 feet above ground level. The ordinance defines building height as the vertical distance from grade level to the mean height between the eaves and the ridge for gable roofs. It is not measured to the roof peak. It also defines conditional use as a use which, although not specifically permitted in a given zoning district, will become harmonious or compatible with neighboring uses through the application and maintenance of qualifying conditions. Because the home being built is a single-family residence, makes it compatible with the neighboring single-family residential uses currently in place. A requirement to submit a landscaping plan and no windows to be added to the garage story could be considered qualifying conditions. This residence is located in the Whistling Pines subdivision north of Payson. The subdivision consists of 1- and 2-story single-family residences and lots that are still vacant. On Scott Drive, where the residence is being constructed, there are 12 single and 17 2-story homes. On the roads Neal Drive and Neal Spur that provide access to Scott Drive, there are 9 single and 25 2-story residences. The parcel the residence is being constructed on has its own challenges. It is 70 feet in width and at its front and 215 feet in length, with over half of the parcel located in the floodway and the remainder in floodplain. There is an existing septic system installed in 1989 and mature apple trees. These factors contributed to a limited buildable area and the need for a taller structure. In an effort to obtain additional building area, the owner submitted an application for administrative variance to reduce the front setback from the normal 20 to 10 foot. The administrative variance was approved in August of 2018, having met the necessary criteria for approval listed in the zoning ordinance. Staff followed required notification requirements and received no appeals of the decision. With the property being located in the floodplain, FEMA regulations requires the lowest floor to be 1 foot above the regulatory flood elevation, which the owner's surveyor calculated to be 6 feet. The applicant informed staff that faced with either constructing the home on piers or a crawl space with limited use, they chose to utilize the space as a garage and revise the plans prior to submittal. The single-family residence being built is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, about just under 2,500 square foot, with a garage just under 1,300 square foot and open and covered decks. Because of the staff's interpretation of the zoning ordinance, the garage level is considered a story. It has no windows, only a man door and 2 garage doors, along with flood vents to meet FEMA requirements. There is no access from the interior of the garage to the second floor, and there are 2 habitable floors above the garage. CUPs are usually applied for prior to construction, but the zoning ordinance does not require it to be in any particular order. The CUP application being submitted after construction has commenced is the result of staff failing to notice that building plans for the residence submitted last year would be in violation of the zoning ordinance for the number of stories and the building's overall height. The 2 issues were discovered after conducting research as a result of a complaint received in April of this year regarding the building's height. The applicant was informed of the violations and a CUP could be applied for, which the applicant did do. I'd like to take a quick minute to inform the board of the additional measures that I have implemented in the building process to ensure that this type of error is not repeated. First, we start with retraining of staff and determining the number of stories and the building height. We revised the submittal checklist that staff uses so that stories and height is a separate item and not grouped with other items. Any plan submittals more than a single-story residence or addition will require a supervisor to verify staff's determination of the number of stories and building height. The height and stories will be noted on all plans and initialed by all parties involved in that determination. The plans examiner will also verify the number of stories and building height during the plan review process, and that it is the same as noted as on the plan. Any discrepancies will be brought to the attention of the building official. We will also begin asking the contractor or property owner, if an owner builder, at the time of permit issuance, to sign a statement acknowledging that it is their responsibility to not exceed the 30-foot building height regardless of what grade is depicted on the plans or what final grade is on the property. Quite often, the grade on the building plan submitted does not match the actual or final grade. And staff is in the process of inspecting sites of residents we have permitted in the past year that are currently under construction to determine that if any violations exist in regards to in height and stories. We're about 65% complete and found no violations. The applicant held a required citizens participation meeting on May 16 of 2020. This meeting gives the neighbors an opportunity to understand and to try to mitigate any real or perceived impacts their application may have on the neighborhood and community. 30 days after the citizen meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission can then hold a public hearing and make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. After June 18th, 2020 meeting, the Commission voted 5-2 with 1 abstention and 1 commissioner absent to recommend denial of the CUP application and that the owner must comply with the county code. Upon receipt of the Commission's recommendation, the BOS may hold at least 1 public hearing with proper posting and then take appropriate action. Staff believes all posting requirements have been met. A unanimous vote by the board is not required since 20% or more of the owners of property by area and number within the zoning area did not file a protest. As of this morning, we have received 4 written statements against approval of the CUP and none in favor. Finally, I would like to thank both the Community Development staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission for their hard work and professionalism while dealing with this matter. There have been comments and criticisms that have been attributed to staff and myself that were either never said or were beyond our control. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Scott. Tommy, you have any questions for Scott?
Mr. Chair, I do, because I almost can't hear him. Scott, how many letters have we gotten in opposed, and how many letters in favor?
Did you hear that, Scott?
We've received, I believe it was 5 letters, written statements that are opposed to the CUP, and none in favor.
Did you hear that?
I also would like to know the zoning. We keep talking about the height. Does the zoning require the height to be to the roof peak?
Supervisor Martin, the R1L zoning district stipulates that a CUP is required for more than 2 stories and more than 30 foot in height for any buildings.
And is that to the roof peak?
No, that is to the means. That is measured from the means, which is from the vertical distance from grade level to the mean height is between the eaves and the ridge for gable roofs. It is not measured to the peak.
I also would like to know what the height of the 2 neighbors on each side of this property, what height of their buildings?
The residents to the north and to the south of the residents are single-story residences. They don't appear to have like a high ceiling or anything like that. They just look like a standard 1-story structure.
And do I understand that we're talking about for this property a 34-foot eaves, but something like a 43-foot roof peak?
Supervisor Martin, I believe that the peak is approximately 40 foot in height.
Okay, Mr. Chair, that's all my questions for right now.
Thank you, Tommy. Tim?
Yeah, Scott. I'm a little confused on where it's measured and not to the peak, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. But there's quite a few 2-story homes in that area, and just randomly an approximate peak height on the other 2-story homes, because I know up north they build with pretty steep trusses for the snow load. So I was wondering what maybe some of the peak heights are on some of the 2-story homes. And if you don't know that, that's fine. It's just a question that came up to my mind, with 25 or 30 of them there.
Supervisor Humphrey, I do not have that answer. It's obviously are at least 2-story homes with crawl spaces, approximately maybe 4 or 5 foot, maybe tall crawl space, and then the 2 stories above that, but I wouldn't know to the peak.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, to me, the total elevation for the view and things would be the main thing if I were in the subdivision. And whether it's a 6-foot storage area or a 9-foot garage underneath wouldn't matter to me much. It would the overall height is what would matter to me, and an extreme difference to block views or things. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Tim. Scott, how many folks live right there around Mr. and Mrs. Lester? How many houses are there?
Mr. Chairman, the housing count on the street, there were on Scott Drive, that'd be 29 homes on Scott Drive. There were, I believe, some vacant properties as well. The subdivision itself is over 200 lots.
Okay. And so we've received 5 written notices against this. Is that correct, Scott?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In fairness, the public meeting that was held, the citizen participation meeting, the participants that did speak, I believe there was 8 of them, were not in favor of it, but they did not write, not all of them wrote any type of written record. Also at the Planning and Zoning Commission, there was 2 meetings that were held, public hearing, and we probably have about the same response there of those not in favor, but only those 5 that we actually received written response.
Okay, thank you. Scott, Tommy or Tim, did you guys have anything more you want to ask Scott?
Mr. Chair, not at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess a lot of my questions are visual questions, and I don't believe Scott can answer them.
Yeah, I understand. So, Scott, I don't have any more questions for you either. So thank you for all that. I've been going through all these notes and everything and in your pictures. So thank you. Thank you for sending those.
You're welcome.
Before I open this public hearing, one of the things that I'm going to recommend towards the end of this is that due to our connectivity, the COVID, the limiting of people, and so forth, that we are going to, I would like to see this extended for another meeting 2 weeks out to allow people to be able to come in here and voice their opposition or when they're in favor, whatever it is, to make sure everybody is covered on this. We're going to make a real important decision on this one. And I want to make sure that all of our bases are covered. So somewhere along the way after this public meeting, I'm going to be asking my other 2 whether or not they want to do this. So I just want that thrown out there. I want everybody on YouTube, if anybody's watching us, I don't even know how many we got, but if anybody's out there, that this is going to be something I'm going to be asking for. So,
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
If perhaps an extension might be something that you would look for a motion on, prior to hearing things today and then again in a couple weeks, pretty much same information, it's just perhaps more people with information. I would make a motion to extend this or postpone this hearing.
I'm not really in favor of doing that, Tim.
Okay.
And let me explain this. I want to make sure everybody's clear on my thoughts here. This is a legitimate public hearing. This meets all the standards of a public hearing. Unfortunately, due to some of our stuff in this building as far as connectivity and the virus and our limitations on buildings and the amount of people we can have in with us, we're kind of restricted. But there's a way we can get out there to cover everybody, to make sure that everybody's covered. Here's my thing is I do not want to see us go through and make a decision and have some people out there that have been left out one way or another. I don't want to see that. And that's where I was looking at, Tim. Does that answer your question a little bit? I know what you're saying about redundancy, and we probably will have some of that. I get it. And I'm not one for putting off decisions. This has been a hard one for me to think my way through. But this is something that I feel like in today's time especially, that we need to get all this right. Mr. Minlove, do you got anything you want to say to this?
No, sir, but I agree with what you're proposing to do.
Mr. Chair, I'll withdraw my motion.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. So with that, at this time, what? Yeah, I'm going to open the public hearing. So right now, at this time, I'm going to open up the public hearing, and I will start with you, Jackie, or do you want to start with the Lusters? I'll start with you. You've got a handful of comments. Let's go through those. And Mr. and Mrs. Luster, I'll give you the chance at the end to voice your thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. I believe we have 4 letters that have been submitted today regarding public comment for this particular public hearing. One of those letters is attached to your agenda that came in on July 23rd. Would you like me to read that one as well?
I would.
Okay. So, Dave, if you'll open the bottom attachment. We realize that public comment is limited to 3 minutes, so you can make it big enough. Thank you. So, dear supervisors, this comes via email to the Board of Supervisors. It comes from legal counsel representing Robert Newman. So, dear supervisors, this office is legal counsel to Robert Newman. Mr. Newman owns the real property located at 649 Scott Road in Whispering Pines. Mr. Newman's property is located immediately to the north of the property owned by the Lusters, and which is the subject of their request for a conditional use permit, which would allow them to blatantly violate Gila County's zoning ordinance in 2 important respects. First, the request would allow the Lusters to proceed with the construction of a 3-story building in an area where no 3-story structures exist and only 2-story residences are allowed. Second, the request would allow the Lusters to exceed the county's maximum height restriction by building a structure 34 feet in height, measured as the distance from the ground level to the mean height of the roof, when Gila County Code permits a structure only 30 feet in height. This decision would adversely impact my client's property value as well as the property values of the neighbors, and also significantly diminish the level of privacy the property now enjoys. For the reasons described below, we submit that the requested conditional use permit not be granted. When the Lusters first submitted building plans in August 2019, those plans depicted a 2-story structure. However, a subsequent set of plans depicting a taller 3-story structure was subsequently submitted and mistakenly approved. All of the plans were prepared by the Lusters architect. The plans mistakenly approved included a height elevation for the structure describing that height as approximately 30 feet. However, that figure related to the height from the first floor level as opposed to the ground level. It appears that the plan reviewer simply accepted that figure as representing the full height of the building. The county, after being notified of the error, advised the Lusters that the structure was in violation and that a conditional use permit would be required should they still wish to build at the proposed height. The Lusters subsequently applied for a conditional use permit. Regardless of the inherent uncertainty as to whether the permit would be granted, the Lusters proceeded forward with the construction, including construction work on the 3rd level. They did so at their own risk with full knowledge that it violated county code, and after having been advised that the only way the construction would be allowed was to obtain, and not simply apply for, a conditional use permit. Local residents advised the Planning and Zoning Commission that it appeared that the construction process actually accelerated during this time. Any argument that the county's mistaken approval should allow this construction to stand should be rejected. From the beginning, the Lusters knew that the construction of their home in this location would bring challenges. Given the location of the lot in a floodway, it was clear that the house would essentially need to be built on stilts to allow the floor level to rise approximately 6 feet above ground level. The Lusters did not like the look of the house on piers and made the decision to utilize the lower level as a garage. This decision brought the design to the prohibited level of 3 stories, and the Lesters constructed the lower level stem wall to 9 feet in height so as to utilize the lower level as a garage. This was the Lesters' decision, not the county's. Regardless of this known limitation, the Lesters decided to attempt to construct a nearly 3,000 square foot residence. The only way to accomplish this on a lot this size was to build up in violation of Gila County zoning code floor and height restrictions. This should not be allowed. The small size of this lot and its location in the floodway were characteristics certainly known to the Lesters when they acquired the property. They now seek to solve these challenges not by living with the construction size restrictions imposed by the characteristics of the lot, but by violating building codes to the detriment of their neighbors. As referenced above, the plans relating to the Lesters' residence were prepared by a certified architect, Long Design Associates, LLC. All architects can be reasonably expected to be familiar with the building codes and the height restrictions they impose. Regardless of any mistakes by Gila County in interpreting those plans, the Lesters and their retained professionals are independently required to be aware of and comply with the applicable building codes. Long Design was certainly in a position to know that the proposed structure was non-compliant with Gila County Code. In fact, it appears that the architects were quite aware of this compliance. During the hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission, Commissioner Randy Slapnicka stepped out of the meeting and called Long Design directly. He reportedly was told that the architects were aware that the building exceeded the allowable height. The following is a transcript of the subsequent conversation before the Commission. I'm going to skip the transcript because I'm trying to stay within the 3 minutes. The notion that the licensed architect would not communicate to his client that the home he designed exceeded county height restrictions is difficult to accept. Regardless, this exchange illustrates that this problem was created within the relationship between Lesters and their architect. The local homeowners should not be made to pay for these problems by allowing the Lesters to proceed with what was a known code violation regarding the height of the building. Moreover, it does not appear that the Lesters are not inexperienced with the process of home construction. However, the applicant, Mike Lester, indicated to the Planning and Zoning Commission that he had no such experience. There's another transcript that I'm going to skip. The business Lester Custom Homes is located in Scottsdale, is owned by Tanner Cody Lester, Michael Lester's son. Apparently, Tanner Lester is the son of Mike Lester, the individual who presented the application to the Board of Supervisors. Tanner Lester is a licensed contractor and certainly experienced in the business of home construction. It is unclear why Tanner Lester's father presented this application on the property owner's behalf, but certainly there seems to be little question that this family has resources and experience in home construction that most do not. Despite Mr. Lester's statement that he has never been in the business, attached Exhibit 5 is an email from Mr. Lester to Scott Buzan, which states the exact opposite, saying, "I and my family have been in construction for generations and have not had a tag on a trust change. It's a common change. The structure in its current form is out of place for the community. Mrs. Lester has admitted as much. In a public meeting, Mrs. Lester stated that the 9-foot pier requirement would have looked like an eyesore, so they decided to enclose it for a garage. She said they told Floodplain that this was not the house they wanted and that it would not fit the community." Homero Vela, an assistant to Gila County manager, has also stated as much, quote, "In my opinion, building height is not in proportion to the rest of the residences on the street," end quote. The consequence of this nonconformance is very real for the other local residents. During the hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission, Mike Porter, an appraiser, explained that due to its height and the proposed residence would need to be classified as non-conforming and designated as an adverse condition for the neighboring properties, including that of Mr. Newman. He explained that this required classification will necessarily lower the property values for the adjoining residences and, over time, for other homes in the area. Moreover, the impact upon Mr. Newman is particularly significant because the proposed residence is located immediately next door and literally towers above his one-story structure. The privacy that he has previously enjoyed is destroyed, particularly by the windows on the 3rd story, which would allow occupants of the Lester structure to literally look down upon his property from roughly 35 feet in the air. Gila County's height restrictions exist in part to preserve exactly these sorts of privacy interests. In communication with the county, it has been acknowledged that even the county's mistakes should not stop the enforcement of the zoning ordinance. We made a mistake, but this should not necessarily stop us from enforcing the zoning ordinance," end quote. The assistant county manager, Homero Vela, has expressed his opinion that a mistake only is not reason enough to grant a CUP, conditional use permit, there must be no harm to the community. Clearly, that would not be the case if this conditional use permit is granted. If there was an error made in connection with this process, it was either by the Lusters or their architect. It was certainly not made by my client or any of the local homeowners who have done nothing wrong, but yet will be damaged by a decision to allow the non-compliant structure to stand. Any result which shifts the financial consequences of these errors to the local residents by lowering their property values and which simply forces them to live with an admittedly out-of-place structure would be wrong. That is exactly what a vote granting this conditional use permit would do. Mr. Newman respectfully urges the board to deny the requested permit. That is the first comment.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you. The second comment that I have received is from Heidi Swati at 289 West Roundup Way, Payson, Arizona. It says, to the Board of Supervisors, please address the following concerns during the Board of Supervisors meeting hearing scheduled on July 28 at 10 a.m. We were told that the hearing was a public event and was open to the public to express concerns and questions in an open public forum. The communication options that were presented to the public entailed watching the hearing on YouTube with limited ability to type comments, send an email to the responsible parties by 5 p.m. on the day prior to the hearing, text questions to a personal cell phone, no number provided. None of these options allow for a real-time dialogue with the community to express questions and concerns that would allow the Board of Supervisors to respond in real time. This does not provide adequate communication allowed during a public hearing. These options do not adequately provide for community involvement and render the hearing as one-sided, essentially giving the Board of Supervisors the power to make a very serious decision regarding our neighborhood without proper public involvement. I understand that the board was given the extensive notes and minutes of the last meeting just a few days ago. I trust and hope that each member of the board has had enough time to review the minutes and public concerns prior to this meeting, as the decision that will be made could adversely affect the neighbors located within the Whispering Pines subdivision. Please explain why the public was not given adequate access to participate in a live conversation via Zoom, conference call, in person, or other means of communication. Thank you, Heidi Swati. You want to hold off on answering that question until I'm finished? Okay. The third one, for Public Supervisors Meeting July 28, 2020, Item 2A. This is from Patrice Abbott at 407 West Neal Spur, Payson, Arizona. First, I need to acknowledge the dissatisfaction I continue to feel with last-minute decisions by the county to make changes. Nothing is sacred, even a public meeting that was advertised in an article dated July 21st, 2020 in the Roundup stating the neighbors have a chance to speak at all the meetings, including the 10 a.m. Tuesday, July 28th meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Hiding behind COVID is not a viable reason to close the meeting to the public. What is the difference between the virus now and what it was on June 18 when we were allowed to attend without restrictions? I'm assuming that means the Planning and Zoning meeting. Of course, we would have been willing to follow those guidelines again for the opportunity to meet face-to-face with our supervisors, especially in the wake of an election. This is a very tenuous situation, and this avenue the county has taken to conduct this public meeting only increases our concerns about not being treated fairly. Second, I am extremely concerned that the supervisors have not had a fair opportunity to review our complaints as presented in the previous meetings, as the minutes and comments of those meetings were just recently made available to the supervisors. Last, I have heard words like contentious and, quote, they don't deserve anything, end quote, from an email between Scott Buzan and Michelle, in parentheses, don't have a last name, used when describing the residents of Whispering Pines. We did not ask for this problem in the first place and enjoy our peace. We were never given the opportunity to defend our community before the issue got to this level of urgency when the original conditional use permit for the setback was granted with no objections in 2018. Yes, we are very upset at this point. Letters may have been sent out on July 12, 2018, but they were not received by 8 people the county claims to have sent them to. Mail from the county has been received by residents since that date with no issues. Why did the county not send these letters certified for such an important issue? Also, why did the county only advertise the meeting in the Globe newspaper per Scott Buzan? The county is responsible for any contentious reaction we, the Whispering Pine residents, may have. We have been put in a position where we have to advocate for ourselves, as we obviously are being ridiculed by the people who we pay to protect us. Neighbor against new neighbor. This isn't good for anybody, and the blame lands squarely at the welcome mat of Scott Buzan. We will not absorb the mistake made by his department in letting this glaring error made by not one but 2 people responsible for issuing permits affect our property values, our peaceful community, or its future by the precedent this structure sets this structure will set if allowed to exist. The county made the mistake once. How do we know it won't happen again? Mistakes snowball when not properly addressed immediately. This fiasco by the county is going to get even worse if the red flag we have raised about flooding where the structure is located is not seriously addressed. But as we are always told, that's another meeting. And my last one is from Teresa Richardson at 3261 Neal Drive, Payson, Gila County Board of Supervisors. I am writing you in regards to the conditional use permit case CUP 20-01 that will be before you as the Gila County Board of Supervisors this Tuesday, July 28, 2020. The case has been forwarded to the BOS by the Planning and Zoning Commission, who voted 5-2 with 1 abstaining and 1 absent to deny the request. Currently, the home is being constructed as a 34-foot tall, and in parentheses it says 40 feet to the peak, and 3 stories, approximately 1,200 square foot, 9-foot high bottom floor garage, and 2 additional livable stories, which total nearly 2,500 livable square feet. I am a resident of Whispering Pines and are adamantly opposed to allowing this home to remain as is. I am reaching out to ask you that you please vote to deny the conditional use permit for the Luster home. Along with many other residents, I want this house to be required to comply with zoning regulations for both height and the number of stories. Many of us residents have attended the previous neighborhood meetings and both P&Z hearings held on May 21st and June 18th. I hope you have had a chance to review all of the meeting and hearing minutes or audio were available, so you are fully aware of our concerns and the discussions that took place. I firmly believe the Lusters, with their generations of construction knowledge, knew exactly what they were trying to get away with. Commissioner Randy Slapnicka actually called their architect during the P&Z meeting, and their architect admitted they knew the home did not comply with zoning regulations. The Lusters continue to deny that they had any experience in construction or that they knew they were out of compliance. Although, in an email to Scott Buzan, Mr. Luster said he came from generations of construction. I answer calls from prospective property owners on a regular basis. The first questions are typically, what is my zoning and what are my setbacks and building height constraints? Most certainly a professional architect would know this when they are preparing plans for their client. In this case, I firmly believe they both knew and took advantage of the county's oversight. The plans did read 2 stories and 30 feet height, but the height was labeled from the finished floor, not the finished grade, so unfortunately the county staffer did not pick up on that. There are many issues that the Lusters have been caught lying about. Another is that they blame flood control for making them raise the house to 9 feet. Mrs. Luster stated this several times during the neighborhood meeting, and it was false. Flood control told them the livable space had to be above the base flood elevation, or the BFE. According to Luster's plans, that would require a 6-foot space below livable, not 9 feet. The Lusters kept saying they had to do 9 feet so as not to have the house on ugly piers, and so they had a usable space they could use as a garage. There are many homes throughout Whispering Pines that are up higher and only have a large crawl space typically used for storage. The Lusters could have kept the same look with a 6-foot stem and did not have to have a usable garage. No other home in Whispering Pines was allowed to have both a usable 9-foot high first-floor garage and 2 additional stories above. Once the Lusters were notified by the county that their house was out of compliance and that they would need to obtain approval through the CUP process, they continued along with construction. They contend that the county had cost them money with this mistake, yet they have done nothing to help mitigate any losses. Mrs. Luster said their sheathing team was already scheduled, so there was nothing they could do. I say there was absolutely something they could do. They could have canceled them. It's not unusual to have to cancel and reschedule a trade due to weather, inspections, etc. We knew that when we saw them go ahead and sheath the walls and roof before the meetings that they were trying to get as much done as possible and probably then complain about how much they have spent and done so far. We were absolutely right. The Luster family is in the custom home building business in Scottsdale and know how to get around the system and acting like they knew nothing. They absolutely knew. No additional landscape will soften its impact on the community. There is already an existing tree out in front, and it is constantly butchered by APS because the power lines run right along the front. They can't plant any tall trees along the front, or APS will cut those too, and they also need room for guest parking. A conditional use permit should only be approved if found to be harmonious and compatible with the surrounding homes and neighborhood. This house is absolutely not. The pictures shown in the P&Z agenda documents do not show the great impact the size of this home has on the neighborhood and more, so the homes and more so the homes that are abutting it. This house's size is out of place. The house will be here and stand as a monument to the county's oversight. I understand this is a hard decision since the county did get caught sleeping on approving the plans, but please do not allow this injustice to the community by allowing it to remain. The Lusters and their architect have a majority of the culpability in knowing that what they submitted to the county was not in compliance with zoning code, and then failed to mitigate their losses by ceasing construction until the case was heard. They have demonstrated complete arrogance and lied. Please vote to deny the CUP on July 28th and restore our faith in those we elect, that you will stand with the residents and do the right thing for the community. Thank you, Teresa Richardson. And there are no other comments that have been typed into
Nothing through
YouTube,
Facebook or YouTube?
at this time. Hang on. I'm just double checking that I read that one. I want to make sure there are no other emails. I have no other emails at this time.
Thank you, Jackie. So I'll go back and I'll address this one question, and then we'll have Mr. and Mrs. Luster speak if you'd like, and go from there. So she asked, her question was, please explain why the public was not given adequate access to participate in a live conversation via Zoom, conference call, in person, or other means of normal protocol communication. They do have that ability, except for the in-person. We did not let everybody into our boardrooms today. So otherwise, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, everybody has the ability to come through our YouTube channel or send in their written comments. So in my opinion, that covers all of our communication issues as far as this hearing goes. Is that right?
Mr. Chair, I believe the board has an obligation to make this a public meeting, and the availability you've described makes it public.
Thank you. And so the answer to her question is we have done that. And we're willing to go one more step further. The only thing I would say is that when it comes to redundancy, like Mr. Humphrey talked about, we've already heard these. We don't need to hear them again. That's my opinion. But so that's that. So we have that covered. Questions are answered. So Mr. or Mrs. Luster, which one do you want to speak?
I'm the girl. I have all the words.
Okay.
Gosh, it's really hard to hear those letters because we have been fighting these inaccuracies in every meeting, and it doesn't matter what the facts are said. It doesn't matter. So I'll just go give you a little background. When we bought this land at the time with the FEMA maps, we could build on half of our land. So we didn't think there was any problem here. When we went to start our building process, that's when we found out that the FEMA maps had changed, and now we only had a short distance we could build next to the road. And so that's when we got the variance. And so that part of getting the variance, and now we're paying for surveys. We were a year in FEMA just trying to get through their process. Before we even started building or designing our construction docks, we wanted FEMA to get approved because we didn't want to pay for construction docks twice. So we go to FEMA. First, they told us we would have to have 4.5 feet. Then when we got final things, surveys, 6.5 feet, that was the crawl space. And we were going to be wedged. Our footprint where we can be, we are literally have 3 sides we're wedged in on. Our deck is at an angle because of the floodway imaginary line that nothing can even cantilever over. So we only could go up. We're looking at this as a long-term home. We didn't want to go up. We didn't want stairs. We wanted on the ground level. All we had was loss after loss with how the FEMA maps had changed. And so we were just cooperating with what they said. Okay, we got to do this. Okay, this is the only place we can build. Okay, let's work with this. So We think we have FEMA down. We go, we get docs drawn up. We're going to FEMA. They have to approve first. And we think we have this aced. We've already done our due diligence beforehand, only to find out now that the floodplain says, no, you have to have 8 feet. This is not, we didn't change this. It's not originated from us. Everything in our plans, our stairs had to be elongated. Our stairs no longer fit in the footprint. We couldn't get it in there. Everything had to shift. We had our survey look at this new height thing. It's a matter of months. How does this happen? And so we are adjusting around. Again, we don't have control. The floodplain doesn't have control. This is FEMA regulations. And so you just have to work with it. So our way of going, you can either do piers or a stem wall. I 100% believe to be able to do that, we went, well, then let's just make it be a garage. And so we went 1 foot above what they required. And so, yes, to do the garage, I think it looks by far better. This looks like a normal home with piers. It does. It would have looked terrible. So for us, that's the foundation of, we have had 3 different height requirements from our stem wall from FEMA, some within a matter of months, and that is not anything we have originated at any point. We have followed every single thing that has been required of us. We have always had a mentality of just how do we get a solution, and that has been our focus with all of this. So when FEMA said this, we go back and to our draftsman, and that is the part where it's like, okay, adapt again. It's ironic, and this is where, for me, we were stunned in the commission meeting that a commissioner would kind of come like that. And so Mike was literally so blindsided by this quote from him. And I'm going, it's very confusing for us, because did we know that the height was 34 feet? Yes. Did we know this violated any laws in this area? No. The last thing when Mike's picking up plans, he says to Shannon Long is, hey, is there any height restrictions out here? And Shannon's response was, I don't know, that's for the county to figure out. So then Mike takes those plans, he drops them off at the county, several employees there, and he says, hey, is there any height restrictions out here? And again, several employees, no. So this is not our job to know the laws out here. It is not our draftsmen to know the laws here. It's the county does this 40 hours a week, 50 weeks out of the year for decades. Some of them have been there forever, and they missed it. So to try to say we are responsible to know this, we should have somehow done the research, that's what all the fees are we have to pay to get our construction docs approved. This is your job. This is not our job. If anything, we went beyond our due diligence to ask the county and to highlight this. Hey, is there any height restrictions out here? And so for the letters from the attorney, from what they're stating, even to say, yes, my son is a contractor. When we're saying Mike's uncle built a house, Mike helped him build it when he was in college. He helped his parents build a house. He has done that. Has he got a contracting license ever? Never. Our vocation is in all of our track record, our IRS papers. We have never been in that business. We're proud of our son and what he does. He's in a custom home building business. Does he have anything to do up with Gila County regulations? He's building in Scottsdale. He has no clue. We don't even understand. Like, they accused us of this in the commission meeting, like pointing at us like we're criminals. Your son's a contractor. And it's just like, what has that got to do with this issue? So for us, this part of how we got here. We got here doing every next step that floodplain asked, okay, now you can submit your construction docs. We did that. We got green tags. Great. We start building. We are excited to start building after over a year in floodplain. So we have over, yes, $115,000 into this house when a neighbor complains. So we get the call from county. County didn't tell us to stop building. County didn't tell us anything other than you need to apply for a CUP. So when they want to go, they lied. We have been dealing with these statements from them. This is now our 4th meeting. So I'm sorry, it's a little hard when you say, let's do a 5th meeting, because these people have taken over every meeting. And we go through 2 hours of being called liars, arrogant. They call us names in the commission meeting. They started out this meeting because of the history, and they said, please do not do personal attacks, and please stay on task. You can ask any county official here how much time of that meeting was devoted to this issue. Nothing. It was all personal attacks again. So for us to go, oh dear God, these people get to do this again? It's really hard. So for us, what happened with this is we have a band of people that is harassing. It is like 3-4 of these people, most of them married couples, have become the mob. And they say the most horrendous things. They have driven by our house screaming out the window, your house is ugly. They have screamed at all of our workers about, not they're making noise, screamed at them about how tall this is and how ugly it is and why are you building this? They have screamed at our neighbor. He is a kind man who is right next to us. Screamed at him, how could you let them build this? So the assaults we have gone on in the community meeting, Scott Buzan had said, hey, we go, what do you need from us? When the county told us this thing, our response was, we didn't do this. We have green tags. We've had 8 inspections. We've just been doing the next right thing. We get a pass, a green tag, we're going to the next thing. And so we get this, and our response to Scott is, what do you need from us? How do we help you? You guys are in a bad place here. That was our attitude. How do we be part of this solution? And so that was the part. They said, come down, fill out this CUP application. We dropped everything, we came, we went to the county, that was taken care of. Then they said, we have a community meeting. We asked Scott, okay, what do you need from us at this community meeting? What do we expect? He said, you know what, why don't you draw in some landscaping, do some elevation so they can see really how nice your project's gonna be, and we just want you to talk about it a little bit. We're excited, we're getting on a Zoom call, this is what's gonna transpire. Only to find out this was 2 hours of absolutely us being attacked. This is where we didn't see this coming. Literally, we were swimming. We had the neighbor across the street, which, by the way, he lives up on the top of the mountain. I don't know how high that mountain is, 40 feet up there. It's difficult when Mr. Newman's attorney says our house violates his security or his privacy over there, when there's 2 houses up there overlooking everything on our level. So for us, that's nonsensical. But one of the most vicious person here has been Ted Schmidt. And literally, well, first this nice neighbor next to us, he tells everyone, I cut down 34 trees on my land. We pruned 3 trees. We pruned. We went to the Department of Agriculture, the head, and asked, and he told us what to do. We did this responsibly. In the meeting, Mr. Schmidt says, we have violated our trees, we have violated our land, we have violated the creek, and Mr. Schmidt's documenting every one of them. He threatened us. I'm gonna call the sheriff on your grandkids. My grandkids, 3 to 8 years old, because they're riding a little quad, and he's calling the sheriff on them. You guys park in the road once, I'm calling the sheriff on you. The name calling in this, I'm saying I have never in my 64 years today encountered such vicious, nasty people in my entire life. We were beyond stunned. They told us in that meeting we should have asked them before we had plans drawn up. This is the kind of power. They told us, we want your whole house torn down. You guys live in your little travel trailer that we're in while we're building. When Scott specifically asked them, who is in favor of tearing down the 4 feet? We don't want just the 4 feet torn down. We want the 3rd story torn down. We want the whole house torn down. That is the part of their viciousness in how they attack us, and those attacks have not stopped once. In fact, one of the people that was in that community meeting said, he's shaking his head. He goes, I have served on a ton of HOA boards. I have served on POA boards. I have never in my life heard anything as nasty. You guys endured nothing but personal attacks. There was no focus. They continued to say this thing that we knew, and we came in and we rushed and we got everything done. Every meeting we've said, you can't get a plumber to your house in 24 hours. These workers were scheduled 2 weeks out. No one had told us to stop construction. We're proceeding. We didn't violate one thing from the county. We didn't deceive. We didn't lie. We've said this into every meeting. The facts don't matter. Scott has verified there was no stop work order in place. He still says there's no stop work order in place. He told them, we're just not going to do inspections. And so the facts don't matter. They bring up our septic system in every meeting, and it doesn't matter how much Scott has said. This. These are the facts. In, again, the commission meeting, he said, we're not going to talk about the septic system. It doesn't matter. They said no personal. It doesn't matter. They take off and they take over every meeting. We couldn't even have an intellectual conversation about these issues because of how much they took over the meeting. So that part of just feeling like there have been 4 articles about us in the Payson paper. And this is where I'm going, this is not just hearsay, it is in there. So in this one, it's a pretty big article. This is where they quote the residents. I can't express the abomination this is, and I can't express my loathing enough on this project. And so then they go on to say they have shown no regard for anyone. I don't even know what that means. Showed no regard. This is where it feels like they're back to saying we should have asked their permission on what we built. This article quotes the residents as saying, we want the house torn down, and we wonder why anyone would want to live where they're not wanted. The third article, main thing quoted from the residents, why would anyone want to live where they are not wanted? These people have been clear. They don't care about 4 feet off of the peak of our roof. They want our house torn down, and they're trying to run us out of this neighborhood. They have made that be clear. The ironic part was, you would think after the commission meeting voted in favor of them coming to compliance, the harassment now started. From that meeting and that judgment, we have been absolutely harassed, and now they're using the floodplain department to do it. We get a call that says, you have a pile of dirt out front, and some neighbors have complained because it's going to flood their house. So you need to come from Phoenix, and you need to come and you need to move this pile of dirt. I have maps, and I just put out, these are the people who are complaining. like the Richardsons who wrote that letter. Can I hand these to you?
Sure.
That part is showing where these people are that are afraid that their house is going to be flooded. There is no way that the Richardsons' house can be flooded. The Schmidts across from us, that are the number one people that harass us and slander our name and call us the most despicable things, they're the ones 30 to 40 feet up in the air. So these people have no way to say they're flooded. When we told our neighbor, I don't know if you guys have this packet with page 35 where it shows the lots. So this is our lot. These two properties right here have not registered one complaint. They are not a part of this at all. The people over here are the ones that are up in the mountain. So when you talk about, are we restricting views? We're on the road. Here's the creek. We're in a place that goes, there's not restricting any view. We have nothing but mountain going up here. The Smiths have complained they have to look at our roof every day. They're going to look at our roof whether we take 4 feet off of it or not. So these two neighbors, this is the neighbor that goes, I don't care what you guys build. That's not the issue. You guys went through everything right. So the people right here that are affecting us the most, I don't know how far Mr. Newman lives down here, but I'm going, this is a long distance. And if it's this property, we can't even see in their backyard. They have so many trees. Again, the privacy issue is like, this is so bizarre to us. So that part of seeing like the people who are affected by us, the people on this map, the control road is literally like feet from them. They don't even have to ever see our house. They get on the control road. Why would you go through all these windy roads to drive by our house? The same thing, the people down here, they can't see our house. They're so far down that road, the only time it bothers them is when they drive by. The part that, when they say it's going to lower values, these houses are 40 to 50 years old. Most of them have not been upkept. This is going to be, the county has confirmed, and they did their results. There is one nicer house that's a log cabin up on the mountain up there. It is clear our house will be the second nicest house in this complete area. Yes, with all the plywood up, it's a big orange bomb. Of course, but when stone goes up and the painting goes up, our home will be absolutely beautiful. And our neighbor, so that part of going, for us, this does not reflect the neighborhood. This is this mob of angry, vicious people who have gotten really emboldened through this whole process. We have neighbors that stop by and say, they just had, this was the latest one not too long ago, that stopped one of our workers, didn't get out of his vehicle, and he said to him, please tell them we're on their side. We have people now walking by that go, your house is beautiful. We've had 2 people after the community meeting stop and said, we are so sorry. We cannot believe what you endured. The neighbor next to us has said, I love you and I hate you. I love you because you're going to make our property values go sky high. And I hate you because my house looks like crap now. So the part of how this community has responded to us has been kind, apologetic. They tell us they're praying for us. And for us, I don't think any of them want to get on the bad side of this mob. I think every one of them have seen how we have been attacked over and over again in this process. And so they'll come by and they'll tell us this. But it doesn't surprise me that they don't want to send a letter and they don't want to go on the record and have this mob start attacking them the way that they have attacked us. So after, not only did they call floodplain after the commission ruled this, now they're calling the porta potty place and saying they want that moved. It was in a place to protect the 2 neighbors that are on the lower level by us. And so now they're complaining there. Just this week, we get another call from floodplain. In digging the foundation of our house, there was a pipe, a culvert, this large, packed hard with dirt, rocks, and roots that they had to dig out on our land, not in the street. It wasn't a culvert for water to flow through. It was in our footing path that had to be dug out. Those pipes have been sitting beside our land packed with dirt. When we had to go move that hill of dirt for them, we had to get a bobcat and shake because to take it to the dump, we were going to pay a horrendous amount. We spent forever trying to unpack the dirt, cut this pipe in half, and try to lower it on a trailer. Now they're saying, it's been there ever since we started building, but because we shook it out, because we put it on the trailer, now we're going to cause their house to flood. Again, the neighbor living right after us, that if there was water coming from the creek would affect him. When I said, we got another call from the floodplain, he goes, I didn't call them. Who's calling them? Who can anything on your property flood? And that's the whole point. It's harassment. Their houses can't be flooded. And to ask us to go, now the floodplain is saying, you have to put in a culvert that allows drainage under your thing because your neighbors are afraid they're going to flood. So whatever you decide, this is what we know after the commission meeting. They are not going to stop harassing us. This has brought them together. This has given them a sense of community. They get together and this is, oh, I looked him up on the internet. His son is a contractor. And so this kind of thing is what we're fighting. It doesn't matter, like the facts of our septic system. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter we say these workers were scheduled for 2 weeks out. We are being deceitful. And so the part of coming to where we are now with this is just, the county asked us to get bids on the cost and the estimate of lowering this roof peak by 4 feet. Wait, I want to go back because it was the attorney's thing. When we had that construction team ready to come in, we had been working with 2 framers who in the middle of their bid said they wanted basically $10,000 more. We said no, and so that's where we started looking for another framing company. We got this framing company, we had to wait. They did. They sent in 6 men, but we were also talked to the county about our lumber, our house staying open and the damage that would happen, and they knew that we were sheeting this up. And so when we got the call that said, and I don't know the technical terms, not to do blah, 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 these guys had already been up there. It was already finished. No one told us to stop. That was the first call we got. We don't get service up there. It's the first notice we have that said, don't do this. And it was already completed. There has been no deception. There has not been one thing we have not worked with the county on saying what needs to happen. This is 4 months our cabin has been sitting. This is incurred. So putting this together, the counties gave us permission to weatherize it with monsoons coming in. So that was the part that we were trying to do so everything doesn't start warping and there be more damage. But our expense for the warping, again, there's no compassion from these people. There's no part of that. It's only like, you deserve it. Well, you shouldn't have done that. You should have known. And so the harshness is there. There's not any ounce of, okay, we get this. So we got bids. This is really tricky. We have concerns about safety, about the labor, about how to deconstruct these trusses that have to be done with a crane. This is not like demo day you get to come in here. This has to be a crane pulled off. It is very intensive. Men are going to have to be tied off on there to pull this off. We've got to get a special way to haul these trusses off. So right now our bid on the deconstruction and redoing this for those 4 feet are at $50,603. However, this is not our error. We had green tags for every single thing we've done. We even went beyond that to ask the county, is there any height restrictions in this area? So no, we do not believe we have 1 ounce of responsibility to know the laws that the county missed. That is not on us. In every one of these meetings, the county has taken responsibility to say, this is our mistake. This is our mistake. And our response has been through this whole thing has been, okay, what's the solution? What do we do next? How do we work with this? So for us, we are asking for the cup. And we're asking for the cup because oftentimes when it comes to this 4 feet, we feel like this mob of angry people, they just want to do it to it's this harassment over floodplain. Like that is the part that goes. This is not a value. If you said to these people, if your property taxes would go up, would you want your property taxes to go up because the county's going to have to pay for this job to be taken down? I don't believe one of these people, if they had skin in this game, would say, yes, please remove that roof down to the 4-foot level. For us asking for the cup, we have been willing to go through every one of these nasty meetings. And if you have any doubt that you think I'm exaggerating, I ask you to ask any of these county people, because it is appalling what we have to go through. We have been willing to do this, trying to avoid litigation. That has been our whole process. Work with the county, okay, let's work with the cup. But if this is denied, you guys know this is the only option we have. And if this is the only option we have, then this is the part that goes, this isn't going to cost $50,000. Because every bit that we have been through in this, how our house is sat now for 4 months, and now if we prolong it another 2 weeks, we should be in our home right now. But this has been so drug out because they're angry. They bombard every government agency. And I go, I don't understand. I don't understand how the county, the floodplain, the sheriff's department, how these people can use and misuse all of these departments to harass us. I don't understand. Why do they not have to give their address and their name and you can see you're not at any risk of flooding? So I'm sorry. We don't need to take your complaint on this. Why do we have zero protection? We don't, literally, our hands are tied behind our back. Why they take blow after blow, slander us, accuse us of no integrity, of lying. We're deceitful, we're arrogant. We have only had maybe an introduction of a sentence to these people. That has been it. They don't know us. They just make stuff up. And it's sometimes overwhelming for us. So that is the part that I'm going. Every bit of this is going. We don't want to go toward litigation. So that's why we're asking for the cup. This is the part that I go, I don't think this services all of the taxpayers who are going to have to pay a lot of money to cover all of attorney expenses and all the expenses we've gone through and everything in this. And that affects way more people than the 4 or 5 people that are raising claims that, for me, none of their claims are valid. Where they live, you don't see our house. For the Smiths who live way up there, and there is no privacy on any of our houses here, Mr. Newman's statement about we violate his right to privacy is not true. That one property that we have right here, this one right here, is a 30-foot 2-story house. You heard the number of 2-story houses. What looks odd about our houses, we're on the road. And that's what the floodplain. So we can't control that. And so that is why we were asking for the cup. And that is why I'm going, if this can be resolved today, it would be merciful for us to not have these people yell the same things now for yet another meeting.
Mrs. Lester, thank you so much. Thank you for going through all that. You too, Mr. Lester. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair and board members, I have two additional comments, actually a comment and a question. Over YouTube chat, Ms. Richardson says, her quote is, "I said nothing about flooding of my house. This is a ridiculous statement. My concern is with the neighbors." And an email from Mr. Harper, attorney, saying, "I tried to type in a comment on the website, but was unable to do so." The YouTube to YouTube chat, as Jeff and I verified yesterday, you have to accept the terms and conditions. Anyway, I tried to type a comment in the website, but was unable to. The question is, why is Mrs. Lester allowed to appear in person and make a presentation when those opposed are not?
Thank you, Jackie.
You're welcome.
So with that, Scott and Cheryl, we're good and pacing?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to close this meeting. It's a public meeting. And ask my cohorts here, what do you want to do? Tommy?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, what was it that you wanted to do about this?
Tommy, the situation...
Are you still there, and was you...
No, I've got you. I am not one to put off decisions. I would like everybody to understand that. Those on YouTube and us sitting here, I do not like putting off decisions that have to be made. But, and I've got to tell you, right now we have issues with our service into this. I don't feel like we have adequate connectivity and everything else to cover everybody that wants to be a part of this meeting. And so what I was asking Tommy, and I wish kind of we had done this ahead of time, maybe lined this up a little differently where we could have had it all covered. But what I'm throwing out on the floor for all three of us to talk about is putting it back on there. And I know that there's going to be some redundancy. We're going to have to probably cut out, but we need to make sure everybody gets a say, good or bad, in this. We have a real important decision to make, and when we make that decision, one way or another, however it goes, I have no idea. But when we make that decision, I don't want to see us in a position of someone not being happy because they didn't get a chance to speak. And so what I was asking Tommy was just that we could maybe stretch out one more meeting, and it takes, and I apologize for this, it takes the 2 weeks to post a public meeting. Otherwise, we'd do it tomorrow. But it takes 2 weeks to get that out for a posted public meeting. And so what I was thinking was to put it out to the 18th and make our decisions. But that's me. I'd like to hear from you two. If you two want to decide to go on with this, let me know.
Correct me if
Mr. Chair, I'd like to know what Supervisor Humphrey would have to say.
The 18th, is that be August 18th?
Yeah.
Do we not have a meeting on August 17th? So it would be a meeting on the 17th and the 18th?
Oh, no, you're right. We do have 17th of Monday.
We could do it on Monday on the 17th? Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chair, if you want to give people a more of an opportunity to talk than they've already had, we've been doing this on YouTube for quite a while now. So I would think that anyone who cared to comment would have had the opportunity and the instructions. Jackie?
And Mr. Chair, Supervisors, we have had, Mr. Harper has stated that he couldn't type into the questions, and we had, I don't know if he's the same one that called or not. I do know that to type questions into the chat, you have to accept the terms and conditions. You can't just automatically open it and start typing. You have to, as Jeff and I verified yesterday, you have to accept their terms and conditions, and then you're allowed to chat. We tested it yesterday, but if someone hasn't accepted the terms and conditions, or if they're looking at it on a TV and trying to type with their remote, somebody out there was not able to type in questions. I know Mr. Harper is one of them.
Oh, I understand modern technology. It's difficult for me as well. I've kind of made up my mind on some decisions and some things, but they could change with comments in the future. So,
Let me say
Mr.
this.
Chair, where you feel comfortable, it's your meeting.
Pardon me?
I said, Mr. Chair, where you feel comfortable, it's your meeting.
I don't feel comfortable in any of these kind of meetings. I'm going to tell you all right now. That's the deal. But I will tell you, when we make a decision, I want it to stick. I don't want us to be litigated or threatened or anything else for somebody not being able to participate. And I will be the first to say, and I'm going to say it right here, the atmosphere up there in your neck of the woods is not a good one. I just came from a meeting yesterday. Not pretty. So I just want to make sure all of our bases are covered. Our attorney is comfortable with it. We're good, and we'll make a decision. I'm sure one way or another we're going to make a decision. But I don't want us to go off half-cocked and somebody or several somebodies claim that they can't get in here, and here we go again. And I apologize for that, but it's this crazy world we live in today. James?
Mr. Chairman, there has been some questions from the board that we did not have the information from community development. If those questions are important in your decision making, then we need to have community development gather that information, be able to give it to you. As I said, if it is important to your decisions. So.
I pretty much can agree with Tim, James, that if we were to make, or if I was comfortable in our procedures here, I could make a decision right now. But I'm not comfortable in our procedure. And I got to look out for us as much as I do our constituents in the county. And that's just cold hard reality. And I apologize to everybody on YouTube and whoever's here, but that's the way I feel about it.
If I could, also too, Scott, if I was able to come up, could we maybe drive this area and look at some of the perhaps other two-story homes in that area, so I get a better picture? I haven't visited that area. If we're going to postpone this, if that would be possible, so I can get a look at some of those two-story homes and the pitch and elevation of some of those roofs.
Supervisor Humphrey, it would be my pleasure to take you wherever you would like to go.
Thank you.
Tommy, this is your district. How you set?
Mr. Chair, I think that if we would like to take some more of a look, we need to. I think if we'd like to give another 2 weeks to make double sure that everybody had a chance to say something, I think we probably should do that. I'd like to have, if there's any way to be able to say, okay, what's been said is now on the record. Is there any new comments to be made or new points to be made or new people that want to weigh in here? But I'm not sure it would be helpful to rehash what we've just gone through. But that's just a thought I had. But I'm unwilling to put this off and give us time to make double sure that folks had their say. I'm with you on that, and I'm with Supervisor Humphrey on, let's go take a look at the area and see really what it looks like. I've been there and I've looked and I have my opinion. But I think if Tim hasn't, then he needs to go do that.
So my thoughts would be then, we put this into another meeting, it's going to be a fairly short meeting. We've already covered a whole lot in this, and it shouldn't take us
Agreed.
a very long. If somebody's got something new that they want to add to this, I feel like we should listen to it, obviously. If it's redundant to what we've already heard, I don't see why we need it in the meeting. That's my thoughts.
Mr. Chair,
Agreed.
I'd like to make a motion that we postpone this until August 17th. And for any new information to be in by then or presented to us as board members to be able to make a decision on the 17th.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Okay. 17th. It is.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Moving on to number 3, regular agenda items. 3A, information discussion regarding funding options for the Public Safety Personnel Retirement System, PSPRS, unfunded liability. Mary Springer.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members, supervisors.
Good morning.
I believe we have a presentation from Brandon Nee, who is with County Supervisors Association. And I see him walking up to the podium, so welcome, Brandon. We're glad you're here. And I believe your PowerPoint presentation is queued up.
Brandon, thanks for being here this morning. Got you out of Phoenix, huh?
Yeah, always happy to leave this time of year, the valley.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if I could, the county give a little bit more background information. The County Supervisors Association has been looking at this for some months because they know that it's an issue for all counties in Arizona to consider the unfunded liability, unfunded debt, particularly public safety personnel retirement system. Brandon has been going out meeting with the retirement system, meeting with financial institutions, meeting with attorneys and all kinds of different people to see what a solution or recommendation could be, whether it was something that we could all do together as all counties or anyway, Brandon has done a lot of research, has spent a considerable amount of time to make some recommendations on what we should do as a county. Wanted to bring Brandon in because he's kind of last time we had those that are in the market, they're in the business of doing this, they would stand to gain some revenue from doing this if we went to bonds, or attorneys and the bond people would gain from that. So Brandon is an independent voice, has done a lot of research, and I felt that this would be able to give us some additional information on our PSPRS debt.
Thank you, Brandon.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, thank you, and good morning, supervisors. Thanks for having me. As James mentioned a few years ago, I sort of took on the task of trying to sort out the problem that is the growing unfunded debt in these PSPRS systems, but also in looking at options and solutions for counties that would let you guys repay some of this debt at the lowest cost, but also minimizing the damage or potential damage to your administration and the services that you're really here to provide. So I'm going to share some of what I've learned over the past few years today, and then try to zoom in on the issue at hand, on this idea of maybe financing or borrowing to pay that unfunded liability, and see if I can offer some unique perspective on that. I will say this, from your position, this looks like, and in some ways is, a very technical issue. Pensions are just technical things. The system has a lot of nuances. But when we're thinking about making these individual decisions, we've taken on the tact this whole time that each of them can really be compartmentalized. We can make it simple enough to understand. And this is no different. I really think that this decision comes down to, really a couple questions at most. Is there a benefit to borrowing? And so keep that in mind as we go through this. And it's not a long presentation. I've got about 8 slides. Is there a benefit? And then can you earn more with the money that you borrow than you're going to pay to borrow the money? It's as simple as that. And I'll try to show some of the places where your questions are valid. They're the same ones that we asked along the way, but in some cases, they're not important or significant in this particular issue. So hopefully you've seen this before. We use this. The actuary uses this. The system administrator uses this. Stiefel maybe even presented something similar to this. So this is how pension systems are constructed. This is how individual retirement plans are constructed. For any of you that have or are familiar with IRAs or 401ks or any modern retirement system or any defined contribution system, the benefit you get, which is just the amount you get when you retire, is paid for or equal to what you put in, the contributions, plus what you earn off those contributions, which is your investment income. So as simple as that. And when these things don't balance, that's the conversation that we're having, right? So we can do one of two things, right? This is a scale. Either the investments or the contributions or both need to necessarily come up to meet those benefits, or we have to figure out how to lower the benefit side. So these are some of the questions then underneath that I'm sure you've had on your own that we walked through in our discovery process. So starting with benefits, can we lower that side? It seems like the easiest thing. But multiple lawsuits that say, no, we can't diminish the benefits for those that we hired into the system under a certain promise. Once they're in that system, they're owed those sets of benefits. They can't come down. The only thing we've really been able to do is add some nuance to the way that those benefits grow so that it is a more controlled calculation. So we much more definitely know what we owe this group. On the other side of the equation, what do we do with investments, right? Can we try to earn our way there? Is assuming a higher rate or trying to earn a higher rate the right thing to do? It's a delicate balance. If you try to earn a higher interest rate, you introduce a lot of risk. We saw that 10 years ago. We're seeing that in the markets today. And then what happens when we're wrong? The higher the system assumes the investment rate that we're going to earn, the more often we miss. And the problem is when we miss, we come back to each of you and we ask you to give more on that contribution side because there's nowhere else to go when we miss on investments and contributions. In terms of the question of where should we be, what should our funded status be, 100%. Different people will tell you differently. That's just my take. Any amount of money you're missing is debt. So being 39 or 50% or 80% funded, the rest of that, between that number and 100, you still owe at some point. And the longer it takes you to put it back in, the more costly it is. And that's what we'll get into in a couple slides here. I want to take I want to bring the part of the system that this decision focuses on into focus. So PSPRS is an administrator of 3 systems. So they're administrator of the Public Safety Personnel Retirement System, which is public safety officers. They're an administrator of court, which is corrections officers, and they're administrator of EORP, which is elected officials. What we're showing here are, you often hear the term tiers. Don't really care, whether that, is in your brain or not. In my mind, there's 2 things. There's the current system, meaning if someone was hired today, that's the system you would go into. And then everything before that are the old systems or the legacy systems. And all those the only way those are created is they're dates in time where we change benefits. We said we no longer offer that same benefit package. If you're hired from now on, you're in a different group, right? The only reason that's important is it lets us identify which part of the systems do we have problems in. So all of the current systems are pooled, meaning you no longer just have a Gila County plan. Right? You're in with the entire state, and they're well funded so far. So we don't have a problem yet, and hopefully ever, in the system, in the new tiers. When we look at EOR, it is now and always was a pooled plan. So you can't address that on your own. You need to work through the system. That's a lot of the work and conversation that we're having, but there's really nothing to do because it is, again, a pooled statewide plan. PSPRS and Corp, the legacy plans, are different. You have your own plans, you have your own unfunded liabilities, you have your own assets, you have an amount that you owe and you know. And you can see those funded levels there. PSPRS is shy of 40% funded for your county, and Corp is better, but is 71% funded. So that's really what we're talking about solutions to. So how do retirement plans work, and how does our PSPRS plan in being more specific work? I'm going to use this visual the rest of the time. I didn't want to introduce a lot of different tables and charts and make this confusing. So I'm going to try and use this, and I wish the colors had maybe showed up a little more vibrant, but you can still see what we intended. So let me explain what I've tried to demonstrate here. I'll start all the way on the right at that large bar that's 100%. We have years along the bottom, but I'm just calling that tomorrow. You owe that tomorrow, and then what that really means is years down the road. So that's your tomorrow cost. If I go all the way to the left to that 100%, the system tries to tell you, do you have enough today that we can invest your money at the rate we think we're going to earn, and you'll get there. So this is really similar to if you went into your financial planner's office and you said, 20 years from now, I want to retire. How much do I need? And he said, well, that tomorrow cost is $2 million, and I think I can earn you 10% a year. So you need today to have $250,000 in your retirement account, and then you don't have to make any more contributions. So if you were 100% funded according to the plan today, all of that sort of gray space, all of that space will be filled by investments. You don't have any more contributions going into the system. And ideally, that's where we want to be. This shows what happens when you're not. And so we've taken the percentage of your PSPRS plan and dropped that on the left. So the assets you actually have today are noticeably smaller than what you need to just use investment income to get to the 100% tomorrow. And what that means is not only do you have to repay up to that green line in missing assets, you're responsible for paying a portion of the investment income that you're missing out on because you don't have the assets in the plan. Does that make sense? Or sort of any questions? And so by that same logic, the longer you wait to get back to that green line, the more you're making contributions until then. So if you decide to borrow 10 years from now, you'll be making additional contributions and paying some of that missing investment income, and it'll be more expensive than if you borrow today. So the cheapest way to repay any retirement plan that counts on investment income to make to pay a significant portion of the cost is, if we could have done it yesterday, it would have been better. So paying it sooner is better. Just keep that in mind as we go forward. So what is the opportunity then of borrowing? It's the opportunity to do exactly that. Rather than setting a plan in motion where you're trying to figure out with a organization and a revenue infrastructure where you're never really going to have millions or tens of millions of dollars, or if you go down to Maricopa County, hundreds of millions of dollars all at one time. We're not built that way. We're built with annual, tax fee, state contribution revenue. All right, so normally the opportunity is, how can we take the next few years to build back the assets? Borrowing does that in an instant, right? And then you're now working where you can be on a repayment schedule and utilize the way that you see revenue come into the county to pay off that borrowing cost. So what happens then is you can see the two blue lines now represent both the investment earnings that you're making on the assets that you already have and the other 61% that you've borrowed. Now those assets are being invested in earning the rest of that there. Does that make a lot of sense? Okay. Now, the number one question that we get from everyone, and we go through this in different iterations a lot on our own. So what happens if we miss, right? What happens if we borrow this money and then the system sees investment losses, or even if they're just not as high as they anticipated they would be, right? So I'm going to show you both scenarios, whether you borrowed or you don't. So this will look similar to if I go back 2 slides, but you'll notice that the green area that is your responsibility to make up contributions and missed investment earnings has grown. So if this assumes that the plan over the entire, I think it's a 20-year period, over a 20-year period, the plan doesn't earn 7.3% like they say they're going to. They only earn 5%. So year after year after year, you have an error built in. When we have errors in the system, it creates a need for additional contributions to, again, bring that benefits equals C plus I into balance. So you'll see that now investments are earning a much smaller portion. Your total contribution demand has grown. If you borrow, errors still create a new need for contributions. Right? That doesn't go away. It happens in both cases. But the benefit still exists. You are earning much more of your benefit equation from investments by borrowing, even when you're wrong. So you'll notice that between this slide and the last slide, your investment income is doing much more of the work to get you to that future 100% line of tomorrow. So what we will commonly tell people that ask is, it's a real concern. Visually, it's something that no one really wants to have happen. And I think Stiefel has presented and other bond counsel have presented some solution to with the contingency idea, which is, let's build something that's in reserve that keeps us at 100% longer. It takes a lot more error till we start getting to the point where we need to put in some green contributions. But the reality is, future errors don't really factor in this decision, or they're a really small consideration in whether you should do this now or not. I'll close just with the primary benefits I see of this. Obviously, it's cheaper in the long run in terms of what the county needs to collect from taxpayers and pay into this thing. And it can be made, and it is often cheaper even in the short term. I know you guys have built yours under the guise of not increasing what you would have been putting in anyway, which is a great way to structure this. And it's a good segue into the second point there. It allows you to take back some of the control of your policy and budget decisions. If you lay the groundwork, if your goals are to control impact to your budget, to make payments much more consistent, to keep them in the in this phase-in period from being higher than they ever would have been, to keep your funded status at 100% by building it, those are great. The way you're approaching it, of laying out your objectives and the policy and budget goals first, and then using the financing to meet them, it takes some of that control back from PSPRS and puts it right here. The only risk, and this goes back to the original question, is you have to be confident that the rate that you borrow at, you can exceed that over the 20-year or 17, whatever the borrowing period is, that you can exceed that consistently with your investment income. And that's where the opportunity, 3 years ago, this wasn't in play. The rates were just high enough that difference it felt risky. Like borrowing at 5, 6, 7%, you might not be that confident anymore that that's going to happen all the time. City of Flagstaff closed their deal last week, 2.7%. That's lower than I've ever seen somebody get a house mortgage for. That, I mean, you're not going to find a credit card for that. In fact, inflation can sometimes grow by that much in a year. So that is an incredible rate. Not that that's guaranteed, but getting something probably, you know, under 4, and then feeling like we're investing in a system that's going to hopefully continue to see 7. But even if they see 5 or 6, there's a benefit there. So that's the one risk that you just have to, you know, ask yourself, do I feel okay, you know, sleeping on knowing that we should be able to earn that going forward?
You know, when you're talking that many zeros, that just kind of makes your old heart flutter occasionally, you know? And so so what you've seen Flagstaff do, the 2.7 is really good. I think we were talking like 3.8 or somewhere in that neighborhood before.
And in fairness, they went, when they did all of their analysis, and Stiefel represented them as the underwriter as well, I think they did most of their analysis at like 3.6. We always usually talk in 4, just to be really conservative. I think Mark Reeder shared with me last week when it closed that like his gut was we could get 3.25 and $500 million of money lined up to buy 130 million. So the demand was there that drove the rate down. So you're also sort of benefiting from the timing of that, where there's a lot of uncertainty in the market and people are looking for good credit risk to just earn something on, and they were willing to try and buy up these assets. Yeah.
And I know at the time it was kind of based on what we ourselves would put in for that pot of money, just in case money that you talked about.
Yeah, you guys have a unique approach to that. You're not over borrowing. You're actually you know, using something that you can basically repay yourself. Like, why not? You know.
So Brandon, you know, when this started, it was, you know, when all this fell, it was because of investments. That's what I understand, that went bad, you know, and lost some money or whatever, you know, and that's where it's still, not that I'm doubting this or anything like that. It's still just the nature of the beast. It's, you know, we borrowed $12 million or whatever it is and stick in there, and then all of a sudden in 10 years, the market turns upside down again. I mean, there comes a point where just how much can taxpayers keep doing, you know? That's what it amounts to. It's not that we're, you know, we are obligated for this. We do have to pay this. And I think us as a board, we got to figure out the best way of doing it. And anytime we can talk to somebody like you or even Mark or whoever it is, that's more information for us, so.
Let me share something on that history that might, because it definitely was partly an investment result. And I put the slide back up there because all of these things were factors. When we get behind, even if investments were just low, you know, we see 4 or 5% consistently, we create this unfunded liability that you see. So even when we were at 90 and 80, the problem is your investment demand now goes up. So let's say you're 50% funded. You have half the assets that you're supposed to be investing. So instead of earning 7% to keep pace, you have to earn 14. And that's what we did to ourselves. We got so far behind that then you know, it was unrealistic that the investments ever would. One of the reasons we got behind in the first place, though, was the benefit side. We offered benefit growth that we priced the thing wrong at the beginning. We said it should only cost you, you know, 10% per, you know, on each payroll check. And we should have priced it at 15 or 20% from the beginning. And if we had just priced the inflator correctly, we wouldn't have created that demand on the investment side that then sort of, you know, got us to.
So, Tommy, do you have any questions for Brandon?
You know, Mr. Chairman, I don't. But I do want to thank him and CSA so much for all the thought and work they put into this and the good ideas they are giving us, and their willingness to come share it. Brandon, thank you so much.
You're welcome. ma'am.
That's all my comments right now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Tommy. Tim?
Yeah, it's a difficult deal to sit here and make decisions for people that are collecting a retirement. And when we got elected, they said, you're not part of it. So the debt can't grow a whole bunch because we're not adding to it any. So we just got to make decisions for those whom are benefiting from past decisions. So, yeah, I think it's a great deal. We've done several financial things as supervisors to be able to do some construction that was needed to be done with low interest rates and playing with money, kind of a refinance deal. People are running to the bank to refinance their house at 7% because now it's 3%. And so, yeah, I have to agree that if you can borrow money at a low percent and for a period of time, you just got to hope it goes up. But it's an investment, we're almost forced to make because we can see what the investment we're doing now is doing for us. Right. So we're almost at the point that we have to make a decision, good or bad decision. We have to make a decision because the one that we're setting on isn't a good decision. So, I mean, that's where I'm at with it. It's like I don't get a retirement. I don't have any choice of what was done before me. I have to make the best decision going forward, and that's not setting on what we're doing right now. It's trying something different because this ain't working. Thank you.
And you're absolutely right. So.
Well, thanks for having me, and Mr. Menlove has my cell phone number. Call me.
Thank you so much, Brandon. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah, good deal. Okay. Let's move on to number 4. Any updates? And we'll start with James. You got any updates, James?
Chairman, I was just trying to check with Mr. O'Driscoll about the status of 188 and the flooding and the debris, the sand and dirt that's on 188. Still waiting for that. So I don't have an update on 188 yet, and that was about it for today.
Thank you, James. Tommy, you got anything you want to throw in there?
Not right now, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Tommy. Tim?
Yeah, still paddling. Met with Homero and NRCS on the 8 different waterways that are impacted by the bushfire. One of them severely because it's all over the road. We still hold the District 2 team meetings to try to accomplish different projects in District 2. Attended a NACO Transportation Committee call-in meeting. I still hold my public meetings, held one at Roosevelt and Claypool. Although they are over the phone, we still get some participation. We met with Mr. and Mrs. Hanson on the closure of Mesquite Street, and that was a good face-to-face. They were able to obtain some information that we weren't just being selfish on not opening Mesquite, which is where the Woodbury fire has created problems for us on Campaign Creek because there's 8 feet of sediment in Campaign Creek, so there is no creek. It's more of a sheet flow down wherever it wants to go, and we're trying to contain it. Attended a dinner up in Payson, Pogo, so I was speaking, and Martha McSally, and good meeting. And as James said, 188's closed, and when I spoke with Mr. Gosar, I told him, let the Forest Service know that we lost 88 last year, and if you ask me, we're going to lose 188 before December this year. So tell the Forest Service, good job in fighting fires, and if we can't stop one that was started on the road by a car, God help us if we ever get some other fires going, because they burned almost 400,000 acres of District 2 in the last couple years. And so that's all I have.
Thank you, Tim. So on Tuesday, July 21st, I was on KMOG in Payson. I had 30 minutes up there. I spoke a lot about just basically our road projects, capital projects, things of that nature. A lot of things going around Payson that are not true. I was trying to clear some of those waters. And so I think I managed to clear some of them up, but some of them are still there. And so that afternoon, though, I had a really good afternoon. I met with a gentleman up there named Kent. It's Kent Industries. And what he is he's a fabricator that built a fire suppression sprinkler system. And he can build it either on fences, like around your properties, or he can build them portable. And what he showed us was a portable one. It was on wheels. This thing's really cool. This guy did an outstanding job. He patented the fittings that were on it and the whole 9 yards, and the way he manifolded it made it have equal pressure across all the nozzles, depending on the pump, of course, but it can reach up as far as 300-400 feet in distance. And what he had there and what he was showing us was one that could be adjusted. It can either be stand straight up and shoot out, or you can lay it more towards its side. So it can shoot at an angle up, maybe to get higher, or you could turn it the other way and shoot at an angle down the hill. This guy did a fantastic job. And so what I did was I lined up Congressman Gosar and the Forest Service and everybody, and we all took a look at it, trying to get him in the system to start building these, not only for suppression with the Forest Service, but just people like, say, the portals in Strawberry, Pine, up there where you got big old nice fancy homes in a brush field. So that was really neat. Another thing we did is we had a meeting with Stephanie Ray from Workforce Development Board, and she came over to Payson and met us there, and we toured our teen center right there. And she got to go through it and look at all of that. Of course, it's still kind of shut down because of the COVID deal, but she is able to see what we're going to have to offer, what Chief Lessard's going to have to offer these people coming in there. She was real impressed. Real impressed. We had a good conversation on that. Thursday, July 23rd, I was down here on Kiko with Mayor Al Gameros. I really want to thank him for letting me come on with him. We talked about the fire season, the bush fire, the fact that, the last 4 years, basically, we've had these big fires every year, and the challenges they bring to the cities, the counties, the people, on and on and on. Kind of a short radio deal. It was only about 15 minutes. There was a little bit of mix-up in scheduling, but it was still a really good discussion. And then on Friday the 24th, we were in Payson for the Youth Conservation Corps graduation ceremony. And that was the kids that was working in the Forest Service. They're basically YCC crew, only it isn't really YCC. Really good deal. There's some folks that came up from the valley. And the new ranger was there. The supervisor wasn't able to attend, but we were able to visit with the kids for quite a while and talk to them. They all had a good time. They earned a few dollars and learned some things, worked really hard. Had some other folks there that had worked with them on different projects. Just gave a lot of praises to those kids and how hard they worked. It was really good to hear and see. So the other thing that came out of that is hopefully, with the way that this crew and this summer worked out, even with the COVID crud going on, that maybe next year they could even look at two crews, one in the north end and one in the southern end, like down here in Globe, depending on the ranger and what happens next year. But so it was good. And then of course we took them over there and met Kent and showed them all that. But 25th, I was same thing. I was with Tim that night. We attended that dinner at the casino. I don't know, Tim, there's quite a few people in that dinner, really, and which kind of surprised me. But anyway, it was a good turnout. Got to visit with quite a few people there. And then Monday, which was just yesterday, I was at the Payson Republican Party along with Leah Marquez Peterson. She's from the Corporation Commission. She had actually came by here and visited with me about a year and a half ago. Super good lady. This gal's got her head on straight, a lot of common sense. She's dialed into natural resources and all that. So she gave a really good talk up there. I'm not sure I gave a really good talk or not. I tried, but there's just a lot of things going on up there. A lot of negativity going on, a lot of back and forth. And so I'll really be glad when this election season is over. Jackie warned me about election seasons, and now I see what she says, what she means. So with that, that's all I had. You got something, James?
Mr. Chairman, if I might take a moment to give Mary a status of where she's at with our audits. There's been a lot of questions of where we're at. I know that last night that the 2019 financial statements, they are completely compiled and prepared. They were submitted to the Auditor General last night, so they have everything available to complete the 2019 audit. So that audit will be completed within the next few months. And so Mary's Christmas gift to all of us, that by December, anticipating that we will be current, we will be caught up on our financial statement and single audits.
Wow.
By Christmas. So that I need to make sure that it's very clear that by Christmas, we're going to be caught up.
Way to go. I don't know where Mary's at, but that's a really good deal. And you know the sad thing of all this is, James? These people don't listen to what you're saying. I've been telling them for I don't know how long that we're caught up by March of 21. That's what the ladies have been telling me, and I'm really happy with that. I don't know what the mental block is. I have no idea. I don't know what the problems are, but they're still spouting out there that we're still years behind, and we haven't touched them.
We will actually be current before Christmas.
I hear you, and I'm all about it. And so when, I don't know, do we get a letter or something that says we're caught up, or
No.
it's all done?
No.
Yeah. Maybe we need to, because I don't know what it's going to take to make some of these people understand that
Maybe
it's
we could have
done.
a big party by then, a celebration.
guess,
because
I
that's,
don't
it's
know.
a huge accomplishment. And Mary's just working her tail off with all of her staff and accomplish this. So.
You know, and I've pushed that message now. I pushed it on the radio. I pushed it in the meetings. I don't know how more to push it. So my hats are off to the ladies in the finance department. Always has been. They've tackled a huge problem that we all kind of inherited, and you've done a very good job with it. So, Mary, you and Mary and the ladies down there, wonderful job. Thank you so much. And do we have something else?
Jack has an update on the road, so.
Oh, okay. No, absolutely.
So because I had written a letter about guardrail issues, I'm in a loop to get updated. I have an email this morning that the ADOT is hopeful that they will have the road cleared off, hopefully open this evening. I have some photographs which I will forward and share with you of what 8 foot of sand coming over a road looks like, sand and rock. A picture down from below the road, the culverts that are totally plugged with sand and rock, and the road and the 8. So what that means is, as you're standing in the road, the new bed of the new wash bed is 8 feet above the road.
Yeah.
Up country. So I have some interesting pictures, but they hope to have what's on the road cleaned off and the road open tonight, according to an ADOT update that I had this morning.
So this is just the beginning of our issues.
One wash. So I saw pictures on Facebook where there was, if you were in Tano, you could look down the country and see a little, one of those little cloud bursts that just rains. This is just one of more than 8 washes that I think any time it's going to rain up country, upstream, we have the possibility of this happening across that road.
Yeah, they didn't even get a rain. It was a spot rain.
It was just a spot somewhere below the private property.
Tano Basin didn't get rain. It was a spot rain. And if you're on a guardrail deal, tell Forest Service they missed 2 or 3 guardrails between ADOT between 87 and Roosevelt that they didn't burn.
That they
got most of them burned.
They're saving those for next year, Tim.
Which is why I'm on
With their back burned.
which is why I'm on
They
a
got all of them
conversation with them
except two. They need to go back.
to get updated on how the replacement of those. But
Yeah.
I'll be forwarding you some pictures. It's pretty amazing. It's about 8 feet of dirt.
Yeah.
Send us pictures. Thank you, Jackie. With that, I think we've hashed everything out enough for today. So thank you all. I'll adjourn this meeting.